Creativity management tools for professionals, idea assessment, and choice for action. We remember the creative flow and all its parts. And we also remember that we have tools to design and manage each of the steps in the creative workshop. In this video, we are going to present the last two steps, idea assessment and the way of choosing ideas. Having found many ideas during the idea generation phase, and after having treated the beginning of ideas and transformed them into specific ideas, finally the idea assessment process can begin. Now, why is idea assessment necessary? Here we have a list of 7 very good reasons to have idea assessment. And we present 2 assessment procedures, even though there are many ways of managing idea assessment. The first procedure that we present is related to the use of 6 thinking hats method. When using this method, we start a sequence using the following colors. First, we have the blue hat, which is used to launch the idea assessment. Then the white hat to present the facts about the idea that is to be assessed. Then we have the yellow hat. During this yellow hat, we make a list of benefits and positive aspects of the idea. After that, we continue to the black hat to make a list of risks, difficulties, and weaknesses that characterize the idea being assessed. And then we go over to using the red hat, where we try to feel how we want to assess finally this idea based on what we had from the yellow and the black hat. And then we conclude summarizing with the blue hat. So this is the sequence which is classic for idea assessment using the 6 thinking hats method. And we have another method, the weighted score method. Very simple, very useful as well. A little bit more complete than the previous one. Let's see how it works. We have several steps. In the first step, we make a list of the specific ideas, and we assign to each idea a unique ID code. Basically, we use a numbering of all our ideas from 1 and then to as many as we have. After having specified the ID code for each idea, we go over to an important step, step number 2, which is the one in which we select the assessment criteria that we want to use to evaluate our ideas. And normally we have between 3 and 10 criteria for this kind of assessment procedure. And what is interesting here is that we can have several sets of criteria. So having the first set means that we can deploy the whole assessment process, and after that we can start up again using another set of criteria. The next step is providing a weight for these criteria. If we want to make clear which criteria are more important for us and which criteria are less important. So the weight that we use is from 1 to 6, where 6 is the maximum and 1 is the lightest one. So for each criteria, K1, we have a weight, W1, K2, W2, K3, W3, and so on. The next step, step 4, is basically assessing each specific idea against each criterion. And we do so by assigning a score, once again from 1 to 6, where 1 is the lowest and 6 is the highest score. And we assign a score to each idea against each criterion. So the idea will get 1 score S1 to create the criteria K1, S2 for K2, etc. If the idea fits the criterion very well, we will give a high score, which means 4, 5, or 6. And if the idea does not fit the criterion particularly well, we will use the lower part of the scala from 1 then to 3. To kill an idea, we score 1 to all the criteria, and if we don't want to evaluate the idea, we use score 0, so to all the criteria. So we provide a 0 score, and that means that we need to look at the idea a little bit later. For example, that the idea has not been assessed in this round. Then we calculate the weighted score for each idea against each criterion, and this is done easily by multiplying the idea score for a given criterion with the weight that we have given to this criterion previously, and then we repeat these for each criterion. So we calculate the overall weighted score of the idea simply by summing up the results to a total using this formula. Then we have an example. Here in this table we have the list of the ideas on the first column. Then we have 4 criteria: cost, quality, impact, and safety, for example. In red we have the weight of each of these criteria. We have given scores to each of these ideas, and we find an unweighted score by summing up the scores for each idea, or the weighted score using the formula that we find here at the bottom of this slide. Very easily, the score times the weight of the criterion plus the second score times the weight of the second criteria, etc. So eventually we have a list of ideas with a list of weighted scores, 1 for each idea. Repeating this step for each idea, we finally provide a ranking of the ideas from the best one to the worst one, where the best is the one with overall highest weighted score. This is an Excel file where all these steps have been put, and in the first step here we see a list of ideas. In the second step, this is just a normal list. In the second step we have put a few criteria, actually in this example 10 criteria, and we have decided the weight for each of these criteria. These criteria have been defined in this table below. These are the definitions, and here we find the maximum score for an idea, which is if an idea gets the maximum score, which is 6 in each and every criteria. In this case, with this weighting, the maximum score will be 180. Next to the next step, here we find all the ideas listed here, all the criteria on row number 3, and in the yellow field we have the possibility to provide one score for each criterion, and this is what we have done. So here we find the unweighted score of the ideas, and given the weight that we have in step number 2 here, and given the scores that we have given here in step number 3, we have a weighted score. Step number 4 is just the math of the simple math of the weighted scoring, and here we have the list of the ideas with the scores. This list is not ranked, so I use a little micro here to make this ranking. So here we find all the ideas ranked from the best one, which got 137 points, to the last one, these 3 that got just 1, 1, 1, 1. And then we find 2 ideas here that just got 0, which means that later on we have to go back and see what happened there, why we did want to evaluate them. We can also use this other macro to rank all the ideas with this ID, you see, against each criterion. So here we have a list of the best ideas per criterion, and a list of the best ideas based on an overall score, taking into account all the criteria. And finally, a few do's and don'ts of idea assessment.